In the last 5 years, more than 40 countries suffered several attacks on education. Now, more than 1,500 schools and universities in Yemen were damaged, destroyed, or used for military purposes. Same way, hundreds of students were injured during university protests in Venezuela. And back home in Nigeria, nearly 300 girls were abducted from their schools in Chibok, Borno State in 2014. And in 2018, over 100 schoolgirls were again kidnapped by Boko Haram terrorists. This time in Dapchi, incidents like this necessitated the setting aside of September 9 annually beginning this year to push for the protection of education from attack. Now here the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres.
Armed attacks on education. In addition to depriving millions of vulnerable learners from accessing education, this violence has serious adverse effects, including increased dropout rates, prolonged educational disruption, child recruitment into armed groups, early pregnancy, and sexual violence. These attacks simply must not continue.
As of May 2020, 104 countries, including Nigeria, have committed to protect students, teachers, schools, and universities from attack by signing on to the Safe Schools Declaration. Now, how do we guarantee a safe environment for learning in Nigeria? This is our focus on Nigeria Today. I am Victor Azu. Welcome to the program. And joining me to discuss safety of schools is Professor Basi Obom. He is a professor of science and environmental education at the University of Abuja. Welcome to Nigeria Today, Prof.
Thank you very much.
I've also been joined by Dr. Emmanuel Aina, a retired director at the Education Resource Center, Federal Capital Territory. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening, viewers.
Now, staying with you, Dr. Aina, what exactly do we mean by safety in schools in this case?
Well, safety presupposes that you have an environment, a learning environment that is conducive for learning, that is not threatened by any internal or external factors that could be disruptive to teaching and learning. And so consciously, school developers, school managers, school administrators must factor in the issue of the concept of safe school, both in the school plan, that is even before the establishment of the school, and also in the school plant, that is after the establishment of the school. It's of a concern because there is no school that exists in isolation. The school as an institution is part of the entire society. It is some people refer to it as a miniature society. In other words, whatever happens in the larger society, ipso facto, if not controlled or forestalled, could also happen within the school environment. The example the presenter cited, like the issue of the schoolgirls in Chibok and Dapchi that were abducted, is a reflection of what was happening then in the society. Terrorism is one of the byproduct of terrorism, and I think the terrorists have in mind, they have as part of their philosophy that if they can attack soft targets or institutions that can enlighten the society, that can bring progress to the society, if you succeed in attacking such targets, of course, you will have made a statement of intent to disrupt the smooth running and good governance of the society. So, the safe school is of concern to every nation of the world.
Okay, Dr. Basi Obom, going by what the background that Dr. Aino has laid, Professor Bassey Obom, I beg your pardon, safety of school in Nigeria, just as it is in many other countries, how possible exactly?
Well, I see it from a different perspective. Safety of schools depends on how the government will want the schools to be, how the facilities are supposed to be, how conducive is the environment. A country that will have a budget of less than 8% for education, how is it possible that the school will be safe? I'm happy that my colleague
the budget for education is not exactly for security, and that's why you may want to think that safety of schools may be relative to safety of the society. But I don't think there's a budget particularly for securing schools.
No, what I'm saying, within that, for example, if facilities are not enough, like a school, you have a school where the conducive nature of the school is not facilitated, it becomes a big problem. I know why I went into the issue of budget. Because a school, you are talking about a school that has no fence. You are talking about a school that has nothing to do with the security guards. You are talking about a school that is just kept there and facilities to empower. You see, safety can be even bullying within the school. Safety it has a lot to do with the teachers themselves. If the teachers are not well motivated, they could transfer this aggression to the students. And it's still part of safety that we are talking about. Safety has several diversified dimensions that we have to talk about and look into for us to be sure. Because like in Venezuela, it's still the same thing. In Nigeria, terrorists will take over everywhere. It's the security, if it is not well harnessed and managed, then the tendency of having a lot of problems in schools will continue. And that will stampede the school to be having series of stoppages. And the flow of education will not be possible.
All right. Let me get back to Dr. Aino. You've listened to Professor Obom. He's talking about a potpourri of issues, motivation, bullying, basic things like perimeter fencing of schools and all that. What other issues, in your opinion, could lead to a lack of safety in schools? Safety to the point that students cannot continue learning when they should be in school.
Yeah, the issue of safety and its maintenance, to me, is a collaborative endeavor, and collaborative in the sense that all the major stakeholders in education must have that awareness about the safety of their words in the various schools. And then depending on the type of school, there are schools, depending on the level also, are we looking at primary, are we looking at post-primary?
It's all of it, because the declaration is taking a look at universities and schools.
There are some that are day schools, there are some that are, boarding schools. They present some slightly different challenges. But I think the critical issue is the awareness amongst all the stakeholders. They must imbibe the culture of safety. And when I talk about the stakeholders, I'm talking about even parents, the guardians, the children themselves, the personnel in the school, and then government, like Prof has mentioned. It is not a one-man or one-shot solution. It must be a collaborative endeavor. There must be synergy among the various stakeholders. And the starting point to me should be the awareness. We are living in an environment that is increasingly becoming insecure. That awareness must be there. And the vulnerability aspect. What are those things that can make a school to be vulnerable to either planned or surprise attack? We must have that awareness. And then the political will. The Prof was talking about the budgetary issue. It is a point that cannot be discountenanced because safety entails a lot of capital expenditure and some recurrent expenditure too in terms of payment of the security personnel. And then the deployment of technology. Safety does not come cheap. You know, perimeter fencing, for instance, is one of those issues. America, for instance.
Especially when the schools, most schools are very large.
Yes, to prevent unauthorized or illegal entry of immigrants, the present administration of the U.S. had to start erecting a wall across its border with Mexico. So the issue of perimeter fencing is very, very basic. And it is capital intensive. The world is changing. Even the strategies of terrorists and those who compromise the security of schools, you know, is also changing. So the deployment of technology is not a luxury. Unfortunately, it is more peculiar to the private schools. But I think government, by budgetary provision, should look into that area because the world is changing and very quickly too. Some of the security measures can easily be compromised. Even if you build a fence around your house, people can still gain entry, you know. So technology will do a lot, make a lot of difference. And then that awareness. And but then in my opening statement, sorry, I talked about the fact that safety has to do with the school plan and the school plant. The school plan is what do you do before you establish a school. You know, since security is becoming a major headline in our society today, we must ensure that in planning a school, in terms of its location, in terms of its vulnerability, in terms of its accessibility, we must factor in the issue of safety. And it is better to do something, whatever is worth doing, it is said, is worth doing well. So the budgetary provision again comes in here that we must not establish school half-heartedly. I mean, in terms of allocation of resources, we must give all it takes to ensure that life and property within the school system are protected and secured.
All right. I was just going to ask, how you get a safe school in an unsafe society. For instance, is it possible that a school will, in itself, have a different safety, what do you call it now, a security architecture different from what is obtainable in the larger society? But we'll talk to you more about that when we return from this break. Let's take a break now, and Nigeria Today continues thereafter. All right, welcome back. It's still Nigeria Today, and Professor Basi Ubom and Dr. Emmanuel Aina are still very much with us, and we've been discussing safety in schools. Dr. Aina, I was asking earlier, so that you just round off your thoughts on this one. Is it possible to have a security architecture for schools different from what is obtainable in the larger society? You were talking earlier about things that should be considered even prior to the construction of a school.
Yeah, in my opening remarks, I did say that security should be a collaborative venture. And I mentioned the fact also that the school does not exist in isolation. It is an integral part of the larger society. So whatever happens in the larger society, ipso facto, will affect what is happening within the school system, even including the children, the staff, the personnel, and all the infrastructure that you have in place. So the starting point in response to your question should be the larger society. If the society is secure, it's not only the school, other institutions will be secure. Individuals, citizens within the society will also be secure. So I think, and that's a fundamental responsibility of government. Of course, even constitutionally speaking, it is the responsibility of government to provide safety for the citizens, for their property, for their loved ones. So, and that extends, I believe, to all the institutions within any given society, the school inclusive. What is expected that the school should take a cue and have some internal measures, internal mechanism in place to enhance the existing security within the larger society. And in doing that, we expect that they will collaborate, and I think they do, with the law enforcement agencies, security agencies. Schools, I know of schools that have detachment of security personnel within their precincts. I know of schools that have a network of information dissemination with security agencies. I know of schools that have emergency telephone numbers that at short notice they can make contact. I know of schools that have fire drills, for instance, with the fire services. I know of schools that have security drills mounted by professionals from outside the school. These are the kind of collaboration I'm talking about. So the two must be complementary. They must complement one another in terms of provision of society. A society that is not safe can definitely not have a school system that is safe.
Thank you very much, Dr. Aino. Let me get back to Professor Basil Ubom. Now, safety in this sense, Prof, includes a lack of any impediments at all to free flow of education. Is it really possible to have such guarantees? At the moment, for instance, the children are home, no thanks to COVID-19. This has nothing to do with security, but the children at home, there is no education, but they ought to be there. Is it possible?
Well, it's quite possible, but maybe I'll try to go into what Dr. Aino had said as regards the collaboration of these issues. Because if all hands are not put on deck, the possibility of safety cannot come up. And the concomitancy effect is what we are seeing everywhere. And there's no way we can pretend not to understand what is going on. Okay, look at what has happened now with COVID. The schools are not there. Thank God it's not strike that we are talking about. But COVID has come and then nothing is happening. You see, the facilities are not there for the school to go on. After all, there's that possibility of virtual learning that can go on.
Well, COVID-19 is a different matter entirely, because COVID-19 is novel, and every society, I dare say, is grappling with COVID-19.
Yes.
Ours is not particularly different. And so this may not be the perfect example. I just made mention of COVID-19 because if we go by the description given, when description UN is describing safe schools, they are talking about a complete lack of impediment. Unfortunately, we have one that is not security.
Right. And that one is the COVID that we are talking about. But you can have a school with all the totality of security networks, but it's not safe. This is not only the school that we have to talk about. Safety of a child starts from the home. The parents, it depends on the background of the parents. One, safety of the child has to do with the environment. How conducive is the environment? Safety has to do with certain facilities that the school is supposed to have. But now we are talking about what do we do since this is a novel situation. But I want to put it down and clear that it depends on the amount that has been allocated to safety of schools. You look at schools now, you start to talk about what really happens when you look at the latent consequences of man in, humanity to man. It is only in situations where people will want to create an impact by trying to get into schools where it's supposed to be a soft target, to grapple with them, and then they expect miracles to happen. Miracles cannot happen. A school is supposed to have a security network. There must be that high-class level of collaborations. But if the network is not there, sometimes you go out, you see that in a whole big secondary school, you don't even have one policeman. But you stay in a filling station, and a car will drive in, and you have about 20 policemen taking care of one person in Nigeria. You see, there are lots of things that we have to look into to ensure that the right thing is done at the right time, so that all these manipulations and all these encumbrances will be reduced to the barest minimum.
All right. Now, Dr. Aino, let me get back to you. What kind of environment, in considering safety now, what kind of environment, what do we expect in a proper environment conducive for learning, in terms of safety now? Because if you are talking about safety, like you said earlier, we need to consider from the beginning of setting up the school. So what kind of environment will be best or most suited for educational purposes? In terms of safety?
Well, in education parlance, we talk about a learner-friendly environment. And the concept of a learner-friendly environment encompasses everything that must be in place to ensure that the child is adequately, instructed, taught, and that he learns, and that what he has learned reflects in his character, in his knowledge, in his skills. These are very, very important. And now when you talk about a learner-friendly environment, it's not about the facilities alone, because I know from your question probably what you have in mind is the defense, the CCTV, the security personnel.
Those don't come before the school is in place. So I'm talking about, for instance, if you want to build a prison, now they call it a custodial center. People talk about certain places where it will be best cited, so that it ensures the kind of safety that you want for that group of persons.
I was coming to that in my narration.
All right.
Well, I had a brief stint at the Department of Quality Assurance, where
unfortunately our time is short, so
applicants who want to open schools refer to us, and we have a guideline for the establishment of school. One of the things we consider is accessibility. One of the things we consider is the terrain. One of the things that is considered is the distance, from settlements. When you have a school that is remotely located, it becomes more vulnerable to surreptitious entry and all kind of illegal activities.
All right.
Now, and then in terms of the personnel, you see, we must not lose sight of the fact that the school environment is not in terms of physical facilities alone. There is the aspect of the social environment, which has to do with the staffing, the teachers. You see, they can present some security challenges. And that's why I want to align with, Prof, because the issue of COVID has presented some security challenges.
All right, Prof.
Children, excuse me, just a minute.
Just about 10 seconds.
Just a minute. Even the issue of abuse, child abuse, like rape, can present a security challenge.
Absolutely.
Children have to be protected against such things. And such acts, such heinous acts can be perpetrated from within the social environment of the school. We have had cases of teachers, having carnal knowledge of their students.
Thank you, Dr.
It's a breach of the safety of the school. So we must also factor that into an environment that we find to be very suitable. And that's why teachers, they have code of conduct.
Now,
that is to protect, to guarantee the safety of the child. Thank you very much.
All right, let me run with Professor Bob now. I have just about 15 seconds with you.
My God.
Could you consider, in summing up your thoughts, in rounding off, what terrain, in your opinion, is best for siting of schools and universities inclusive?
I
in
think
15 seconds, please.
Yes, it looks as if my time is being short at all times. But I'm not going to talk about that. But you see, location of schools has to do a lot with facilities within. You cannot take a school to maybe the Abaji teak forest, and you expect that things will not happen. So these are some of the issues that we are talking about.
Okay.
You must ensure that the facilities that we are talking about has to do with lighting programs, electricity. It has to do with facilities that can help. He mentioned CCTV cameras. But how many schools in Nigeria do we have that? How many schools in Nigeria do we have structures, the buildings that have perimeter fences? How many schools in Nigeria can you talk about that the teachers themselves are well motivated? Because safety has to do even from the classroom.
Thank you.
If the child is not happy, if the teacher is not happy, it becomes a problem. So there are several things that can happen.
All right, Professor Basil Bom,
Nigeria,
Professor of Science and Environmental Education.
The time is so short for us to put this
Thank you for your thoughts. I'm sorry, it's not only your time that is short, the time for the program itself is short. And also many thanks to Dr. Emmanuel Aino, retired director at the Education Resource Center of the Federal Capital Territory. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us.
It's been my pleasure.
It's fine.
Now Nigeria Today returns same time tomorrow, and you can watch this and other editions of the program on www.youtube.com/NTADis24help. My name is Victor Azu. Thank you very much indeed for watching.